Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a guide for round 13 of the Nations Cup. Let's get this started. Bring yourself to the right and brake before the curb on the right starts. Bring yourself all the way to the inside of the corner, then gradually accelerate your way out. For the chicane to death, you want to ease off the throttle when you reach the curb that starts on the right. Just ease off of the throttle, make your way through this chicane, and when you're halfway through such a chicane, you can slowly start to accelerate. Brake before the curb on the right starts. You brake hard for a moment, then start to ease off of the brakes and go alongside the track edge on the right. Eventually you want to turn in a lot more, then carefully start to accelerate. For this right turn, all you have to do is just ease off of the throttle, then carefully accelerate, then use a little bit of braking to bring yourself to the left. Ease off the throttle a little bit more, just try to make sure that you do not make contact with the grass on the left. Then bring yourself to the right and brake when the curb on the right starts. Bring yourself as close to the inside of the curb as you can and carefully accelerate. Finally, for the second chicane, brake when the curb on the right starts. You brake hard for a short moment, ease off of the brakes and bring yourself all the way to the inside of the corner. So get on the curb on the left, then do some throttle control, carefully accelerate your way out, and you will be good to go. We'll go ahead and finish this lap, and then we'll go ahead and talk about the strategies. For the qualifying session, you have 10 minutes to try to get a good qualifying time. Before I do mention the actual strategy, something I found out is that if you're by yourself, you can just use the total time on the bottom left hand corner of the screen to measure how far into the session you are, so you don't need to have someone start the qualifying session for you. But back on topic, the way you want to go about this qualifying session depends on the car you're using. So if you're in a car with heavy tire wear like the Audi TT Cup, you actually want to do a couple of laps, then withdraw yourself from the qualifying session, jump back in, and then do a couple more laps. And the main reason for that is because, at least on the Audi TT Cup, the front tires wear out pretty fast, so your times are going to get a little bit slower as the qualifying session goes on. So once you get a couple laps in, just once again back out of the qualifying session, then jump back in. That way you have a new set of fresh medium tires, and then you can go ahead and start your qualifying session once again. So as you see here, I'm going to end up just backing out of this session, mostly because I ended up getting a penalty, but the tire wear is going to start kicking in soon. And it's pretty interesting to see this kind of strategy be a thing, mostly because the long duration of the qualifying sessions let this kind of strategy be an actual thing. And because you are in a high-speed track, you want to try to get a bit of that slipstream, and it'll shave off a couple of tenths off your qualifying time, which could make a difference between you starting, let's say, on 5th place or even starting on pole position, especially when it comes to the higher tier rooms. So if you were to do the strategy that I mentioned of backing out, then jumping back in, you want to do 2 flying laps on your first stint, back out, jump back in, and then you'll be able to do another 1 flying lap, and if possible, if you get the timing right, it'll be possible to do another 2 flying laps. So in total, you'll get 3 to 4 chances to get a good qualifying time. For this race, you want to do a 1-stop. So the thing is that the racing hard tires are required for this race, so you want to use them for at least 1 lap. The racing medium tires are pretty good for most of the race. The only thing is that depending on the car you're using, you might have to pit a little bit earlier, or you can pit all the way at the 14th lap. So for example, with the Audi TT Cup, since it has heavy tire wear on the front tires, you'll want to go at least 10 laps or even go as far as 12 laps with the racing medium tires before you go out and switch them. One thing that is very important is that this is a fuel saving race, so you want to try to save as much fuel as you can. That way you don't have to refuel when you go to your pit stop. For the Audi TT Cup, you can shift when the bar on the bottom of the screen is at 75% full for going into second to fifth gears, but when you go up to sixth gear, you can shift when the bar on the bottom of the screen is at 50%. So you also want to try to maintain a draft throughout this race. That way you can save a bit more fuel and increase your overall pace. With the Audi TT Cup, it's actually pretty good around here, even with its bad tire wear. Its acceleration is going to end up making up for it, and it's also a really stable car, so you don't have to worry too much about spinning out or anything like that. The only thing you do want to be careful of is when you exit a corner, you don't want to be too aggressive. That way you don't steer and accelerate too much to initiate understeer, which will end up making your tires want to melt. So because this is a front wheel drive, the front tires suffer the most tire wear. You want to go at least 10 laps on the racing medium tires, and you can go up to 12 laps on the racing medium tires before you need to switch them out. And I'm just going to quickly show the pit stop sequence. It's really fast, so it makes the one stop a lot more viable than trying to no stop this race. So let's say that you do not like front wheel drive cars and you want to try a front engine rear wheel drive car. There's an answer for that, and it's going to be the BMW M4. Interestingly, this car has pretty decent power, even though you have to shift really early. You have to shift when the bar on the bottom of the screen is at around 25% full. That way you can make sure that you don't have to refuel at all. This car does actually suffer from heavy front tire wear as well, so you want to bring the brake balance towards the back of the car. Having it at 2 points to the rear is a good start, but if you need to bring it back towards more, you can definitely do that. Once again, brake balance at 2 is a good start. So in my testing, this car was averaging around half a second slower than the Audi TT Cup, so you want to try to make the most use out of the slipstream so you can keep up with those who are on the TT Cup. But your advantage is going to come in a little bit later in the race if you end up taking care of your tires pretty well, so you'll be able to be a bit more competitive with those on the TT Cup or on front wheel drive cars in general, as their tires are going to be pretty worn out. But let's say that you don't want to try front wheel drive cars, you don't want to try front engine rear wheel drive cars, you want to try a mid-engine rear wheel drive car, and you're a bit more conscious about the tire wear. If there's a car that suits those kind of needs, it's going to be the GT by Citroen. So this car is pretty light on the tire wear. It is a little bit heavier on the front tires, so you can just bring the brake balance towards 1, and that way you shouldn't have to worry about the tire wear at all. So this car can easily last 13 to 14 laps on the racing medium tires before you have to go on over to the racing hard tires for your 15th and final lap. So with this car, you want to shift when the bar on the bottom of the screen is about to reach 50%. That way you do not have to refuel at all. So even though this car is also at around half a second per lap slower than the Audi TT Cup, it will be able to keep up with them if you maintain a constant draft from them. And your car is going to shine a little bit more once those on the TT Cup are getting close to the time that they have to pit, which is earlier in the race than you. So you're only going to be getting more and more advantageous towards the end of the race, and it's still going to apply when you have to go on over to the racing hard tires, because you only have to do it for 1 lap, whereas with the TT Cup you have to do it for 3 to 5 laps depending on how they treat your tires. So once again, when it comes to fuel saving, the TT Cup, you can shift at 75% of the way for all gears, except when going to 6th gear, shift at 50%. The BMW M4, shift at 25%. And finally, with the Citroen, shift at 50%. But that's going to be all for this guide. I would like to mention that I'm probably going to start doing FI practice live streams and sessions very soon. That way I don't have to constantly deal with empty lobbies, since it seems like Nations lobbies don't seem to be that popular. But that's another story for another day. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. So this is Mr. MCA wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.